My brother said I wasn't invited to Christmas because it was only for successful people. So I just smiled, then quietly stopped paying his kids' tuition and his wife's car lease. Now he's blowing up my phone, losing his mind, and begging for help. When my family told me I wasn't invited to Christmas this year, I actually laughed. Not the bitter kind of laugh, just a single, sharp exhale that said, yeah, of course. My brother, Daniel, was the one who called. He said, we're keeping it small this year. Just family who are, on a certain level. I said, a certain level? He cleared his throat like a coward and said, people who are doing well. People who, have something to celebrate. Took me a second to realize he meant me, or rather, he didn't mean me. Apparently, being single at 34 with a normal, quiet IT job wasn't on brand for their new version of success. My mom backed him up, too. She said it was Daniel's idea to make it a more refined gathering. Their exact words. Like it was a goddamn investor dinner, not Christmas Eve in Peoria, Illinois. I asked her, you mean the dinner I've hosted the last 5 years because none of you could afford catering? She went quiet. Then she said, honey, you've been so busy lately. Maybe a little time alone will help you reflect. That's when I laughed again, just once, and said, makes sense. Then I hung up and opened my laptop. By midnight, I had pulled my debit card from 4 separate accounts. Daniel's wife, Melissa, had her Lexus lease linked to my card. I'd been covering it since she paused her career to become a lifestyle blogger. His 2 kids' tuition, also mine. The grocery delivery, mine. I'd even set up an emergency fund for them last year after Daniel accidentally maxed out 3 credit cards. I told myself it was just what family did, help. But now I just watched as I deleted every payment method they had under my name. Tuition portal, lease website, grocery app, all of it gone in under 20 minutes. I didn't text. I didn't threaten. I didn't explain. I just unplugged the lifeline. By morning, the calls started. First from Daniel. Confused, then irritated, then frantic. Hey, weird question. Did something happen with the tuition payment? The school says it didn't go through. 2 hours later. Okay. Now the car lease is saying it's overdue. Is there some glitch? By lunchtime. Claire, what's going on? This isn't funny. I didn't reply. Then Mom called. She left a voicemail saying, I don't want to take sides, but maybe don't let this little misunderstanding affect the kids. Be the bigger person. Okay? That line, be the bigger person, hit harder than it should have, because I'd always been the bigger person. The one who fixed things quietly while they played house and called it success. And now, suddenly, I was the embarrassment, the invisible one, the poor relation who didn't fit the image. So I decided to stop being their invisible foundation. I'd let the house of cards fall, quietly, beautifully. That was 3 weeks before Christmas. By the time the family group chat buzzed with final headcount for Christmas Eve dinner, please confirm by Sunday, I already knew what was coming. The message came from my mom. I replied, wouldn't miss it. What should I bring? No response. Not even a reaction emoji. Just silence. It took me a few seconds to realize I wasn't invited to be part of the headcount. That was the moment it really hit me. I hadn't just been cut out. I'd been erased. And they were about to find out what that actually costs. Before all this, my family used to call me the reliable one. It sounded like a compliment until I realized it was just another word for useful. I grew up in a middle-class house in Joliet, Illinois. My parents, Tom and Linda, ran a small hardware store that barely scraped by. My brother Daniel was the golden boy, loud, charming, good at pretending he had everything under control. I was the quiet one who got straight A's, landed a steady job, and never asked for anything. When Dad's business started falling apart, I helped out. First small things, covering a missed utility bill, helping them refinance their mortgage. Then, as Daniel's life started to crumble, I became his unofficial sponsor. He'd married Melissa, a woman who treated reality like an optional setting. She wanted a life that looked like an Instagram ad, designer everything, brunches with influencer friends, spa weekends, for self-care. When Daniel's contracting business slowed down, she didn't scale back. She just turned to me. It started innocently. "Hey, Claire, could you spot us this month? The kids' tuition is due." Then, "Claire, you know how much Melissa loves that car. She needs it for the blog photos. It's temporary." Temporary became 2 years. They called it help. I called it survival because without me, the whole illusion they'd built would collapse. My parents knew. They never said a word. In their eyes, Daniel was trying his best, while I was doing fine. They didn't see it as unfair. They saw it as balance. Like my success was some kind of reservoir they could dip into any time someone in the family fell short. I let it happen. Every single time. Because I thought family meant sacrifice. The worst part? They didn't even hide it anymore. At one point, Melissa joked at Thanksgiving, "Claire's basically our financial advisor and our angel investor." Everyone laughed, including my parents. That same night, Daniel's youngest daughter handed me a thank you card from school. Inside it said, "Thanks for paying for my classes," in crayon. Melissa must have thought it was cute. It wasn't cute. It was humiliating. That's when I started keeping a spreadsheet. Every dollar I'd paid, every bill I'd covered. It was ugly, rows and rows of transactions that told a story no one else wanted to admit existed. By last December, the total was just over $48,000. $48,000 I'd handed over without a single person saying thank you. So when Daniel said Christmas was for successful people only, something inside me didn't just snap, it sharpened. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. Sometimes revenge doesn't start with anger. It starts with exhaustion. That week, I pulled away, stopped answering calls, didn't comment on the photos they posted of family dinners. When Mom called to ask if I was okay, I told her work was busy. She said she missed me but sounded distracted. Like she was already thinking about how she'd pose for Christmas pictures next to Daniel's new espresso machine. What she didn't know was that I'd already called the private school, the leasing company, and the grocery subscription. Every account was now in Daniel's name. No warning, no grace period, just responsibility. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. Then, a few days later, I got a text from Melissa. Just 5 words. "Did you mean to do this?" I didn't reply, because she hadn't even said hi, and I was done being polite. By the second week of December, the fallout had started. Quietly at first, like a crack in glass before it spiders out and everything shatters. Daniel called every day. First, pretending it was just confusion. "Hey, Claire, looks like the school's payment didn't go through. You've got that handled, right?" Then, by the third call, he dropped the act. "What the hell are you doing? The lease is overdue. Melissa's losing her mind. You can't just cut people off before Christmas." I almost laughed. Cut people off. Like I'd been running a charity they forgot to thank. I didn't respond. I let the silence stretch so long that eventually he hung up. The next day, I got a text from my mom. "Please don't punish the kids for grown-up problems." That was the moment something clicked. They weren't just ungrateful, they were entitled. They actually believed I owed them, even after they'd uninvited me from the one family tradition that still mattered. Then came the group chat photo. Daniel, Mom, Dad, and Melissa standing in front of a tree wrapped in gold ribbon. The caption read, "Grateful for family and success this year. No mention of me. Not even a fake tag." I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just screenshotted it and went back to work. That Friday night, I stopped by the liquor store to pick up wine for my company's small office dinner. As I was checking out, my phone buzzed again. This time, from a number I didn't recognize. It was Melissa. "You really think this makes you look strong? You're pathetic. Daniel's been helping you for years." That last line made me pause. Helping me? So I scrolled through my memories, years of texts, Venmo transfers, and bank records. Not once, not a single time had he sent me a dime. That's when I realized something. They weren't delusional, they were rewriting history. By cutting them off, I'd forced them to see the truth, and they couldn't stand it. So they were rewriting the narrative, painting me as bitter, selfish, unstable. The family martyr gone rogue. Fine. Let them. I had better things planned. A week before Christmas, Mom called again. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was short, careful. Claire, I know you're upset. Maybe we all said things we shouldn't have. But Daniel's under a lot of pressure, and we just want the holiday to be peaceful. Can we talk after New Year's? Peaceful. That word stuck in my head. She wanted peace while standing on the bones of every sacrifice I'd made. The next day, I drove past Daniel's house. A big 2-story rental in the good part of town. The same one he'd convinced everyone he owned. The same one I'd helped him keep from foreclosure last year. There were new lights out front, a full nativity set on the lawn, even a catering truck parked out front. They weren't struggling. They were performing. So I decided to let the curtain drop right when the show was at its peak. On December 23rd, I emailed the private school's finance office, told them that future payments were the responsibility of the listed parents only, effective immediately. Then, I sent an anonymous tip to the dealership's finance department, just a screenshot of the lease showing the past due balance. By the morning of Christmas Eve, my phone was blowing up again. Daniel's name flashed across the screen 12 times. Then Mom's. Then Melissa's. No messages this time, just missed calls. I didn't pick up. I lit a candle, ordered Thai takeout, and turned my phone face down. When I finally checked it at midnight, I had one text from Daniel. You're going to regret this. He was right, but not for the reason he thought. The day after Christmas, I woke up to 3 voicemails. All from my mom. All starting calm and ending frantic. Claire, please call me. There's been a situation. I didn't call back. But around noon, I opened my laptop to check the shared family email account I used to manage their bills, mostly out of morbid curiosity. That's when I saw it. 5 unread messages from the bank, all addressed to Daniel H. Evans and Claire Evans. Apparently, my name was still listed as a co-owner on one of his business accounts. The same account he used to funnel payments through for his fake construction company, Evans Homeworks LLC. Except, the deposits weren't from clients. They were from our parents. Thousands every month. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But then I looked closer. The memo lines on the transfers said things like, loan payback and investment return. Except my parents didn't have investments. They barely had savings. That's when it hit me. Daniel hadn't just been leeching off me. He'd been running his own scam behind my back, pretending his business was thriving while secretly taking money from Mom and Dad, telling them he was investing it, and paying them returns using the very money I'd been funneling to him. He wasn't struggling. He was laundering my help. No wonder they thought he was the successful one. I felt sick. Not just angry, humiliated. I had been his safety net, and he used me to fund his fake success story. I dug deeper, found invoices with my digital signature, ones I never signed. He'd copied my old template, even my company's logo, to make his paperwork look legitimate. That night, I didn't sleep. My brain kept looping back to every conversation, every smug smile, every compliment about how Daniel finally had his life together. He'd built his entire image on a lie and used me as the foundation. By morning, I had evidence of fraud. I could have gone to the police. I could have ruined him. But then I thought about how fragile his little empire really was. It didn't need a nuke. It needed a spark. So I sent one email to his biggest client, a wealthy property developer named Richard Bowen, the same man Daniel had bragged about working for all year. Subject line: regarding fraudulent invoices and duplicate transfers. I didn't add anything else. Just attached the documents and hit send. By that evening, Daniel called me. His voice was tight, shaking. Claire, what did you do? I said nothing. He screamed, you ruined me. Then the line went dead. 2 hours later, Mom called, crying. She said Daniel's business partner had accused him of falsifying invoices and was threatening legal action. I kept my voice steady. I'm sure he'll figure it out. He's one of the successful ones, right? She went silent, then whispered, what did you find? I didn't answer, because I knew she already had an idea. That night, Daniel posted something cryptic on Facebook. One of those, when people betray you, Just remember karma never misses posts. Melissa commented a heart emoji. The next morning, all their social media accounts were gone. And by the end of the week, so was the money. The week between Christmas and New Year's has always felt like a blur, half hangover, half denial. But that year it was crystal clear for me. Because that's when I decided to stop reacting and start planning. Daniel had gone silent after the fraud came out. No calls. No messages. My parents kept trying to reach me, but I let it all go to voicemail. Every time I heard my mom's voice say, "We just need to talk, honey," I thought of the years I spent cleaning up their financial wreckage while they praised Daniel for being ambitious. Not anymore. I started with the bank records. I still had partial access to Daniel's shared savings account. The one he forgot was tied to my name. There wasn't much left, but I noticed something strange. 2 automatic withdrawals every month to a woman named Renee Keller. A name I didn't recognize. So I did what any woman with years of pent-up rage and a Wi-Fi connection would do. I searched her. Turns out, Renee wasn't just anyone. She was Daniel's assistant. The same assistant he claimed he couldn't afford a few months earlier. She worked part-time at a boutique downtown, and her Instagram told me everything I needed to know. Trips, dinners, a bracelet that looked suspiciously like one I'd helped Daniel pick out for Melissa 2 Christmases ago. And then came the photo that stopped me cold. Renee and Daniel, at a winery, 2 weeks before Christmas. His hand on her waist. Her caption said, "Celebrating success with my favorite partner." My stomach turned. Not out of surprise, but out of disgust. So that was the real reason Melissa had been spiraling lately. She probably knew, deep down, but hadn't wanted to believe it. The betrayal wasn't just financial anymore. It was personal. And suddenly, I knew exactly how to hit him where it hurt most, his image. I reached out to Richard Bowen, the developer I'd emailed about Daniel's fake invoices. I didn't identify myself at first, just said I was a concerned party who could provide clarification on Daniel's accounts. To my surprise, he responded within hours. Turns out, he'd already launched a quiet internal audit, and Daniel's consulting contract had been suspended pending investigation. Perfect. I offered to forward every document I had, emails, spreadsheets, transactions, all neatly organized in a shared drive I'd already built. I didn't embellish anything. I didn't have to. The truth was devastating enough. Then I called the private school's finance office again. Told them the family was experiencing financial restructuring, and that any future billing should go directly to Daniel's personal address. The secretary asked if everything was okay. I said, "It's about to be." The last part of my plan wasn't digital, it was physical. On New Year's Eve, I drove out to my parents' neighborhood. Their street was lined with glowing lights. Every house except Daniel's. His place was dark, silent, curtains drawn. I had a thick yellow envelope in the passenger seat. Copies of every receipt, Venmo transfer, and payment I'd ever made for him. On the top, I'd written 3 words, "Your turn now." I slid it under their front door at midnight, just as fireworks exploded across the sky. Felt poetic, but not in a pretty way. Felt final. By January 3rd, Daniel finally broke his silence. A single text. "You destroyed everything." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "No, I just stopped building what wasn't mine." He didn't respond. But 2 days later, Melissa did. And her message changed everything. Melissa's text came at 2:17 a.m., the kind of hour when bad news pretends to be urgent. It said, "You should know the truth. He didn't just lie to you. He lied to everyone." Then she sent a photo. A blurry screenshot of an email thread between Daniel and a woman named Renee Keller, the same name I'd already seen in the bank transfers. But this wasn't about money. The subject line read, "Mom's investment." My chest went tight. The thread showed Daniel sending Renee bank routing information, my mother's account number, with instructions to withdraw their portion for a short-term transfer. Then Renee replied, "Don't worry. Once your mom's out of the picture, we'll transfer everything clean." I stared at it for a full minute, trying to process what I was seeing. Out of the picture? Melissa must have sensed I was confused because another message came through immediately. He told her mom was sick, said they needed to move the money fast to protect family assets. She believed him. He drained her savings last month. $50,000. Renee helped him do it. My stomach dropped. I called my mother's number right away, and she answered on the third ring, her voice groggy and confused. When I asked about the account, she sighed. Your brother said it was temporary. Said he was investing it for me. Her voice cracked. Claire, is that not true? I had to sit down. I told her what I'd found, and the silence on the other end was something I'll never forget. The kind that breaks something invisible. By dawn, Melissa had sent me everything. Copies of texts, screenshots, even a recorded voicemail where Daniel was panicking, saying things like, "They'll never trace it to me if we move it now." That's when it hit me. Renee wasn't some naive side piece. She was his partner. Not just romantically, but in fraud. She had access to his accounts, his client list, even my parents' bank information. And she'd played her role perfectly. Sweet, supportive, loyal. She made Daniel feel powerful, like a man finally in control of his own destiny. In reality, she was pulling his strings. I went to the bank myself that afternoon. Sat across from a woman named Trish who handled fraud reports. She took one look at the documents and said, "This is serious. He's been using his mother's account as collateral for personal loans. If he defaults, your parents lose their home." My hands started shaking. When I walked out of that bank, the cold air didn't even register. I just kept walking. My thoughts were racing so fast they blurred together. He didn't just use me. He used all of us. And he almost got away with it. That night I called Melissa. She picked up immediately. Her voice was quiet, hoarse, wrecked. "I found her emails, Claire. She's been draining him too. She cleaned out his backup account last week and vanished. He has no idea where she went. Renee had ghosted him, took what she wanted and left him holding the bag." Melissa continued. "He thinks you're the one who exposed him to Bowen. He's spiraling, drinking, blaming everyone. He said something about you ruining his life, but Claire, his life was already gone." I didn't respond right away. I just sat there in my apartment, surrounded by documents, screenshots, and proof of every lie my brother had ever told. Daniel had built his success on deception, and now the same kind of woman he used to manipulate everyone else had turned around and destroyed him. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt this cold, hollow ache. Because the one thing I'd never realized until that moment was that Daniel didn't just hate accountability. He hated me for being proof that it existed. And the worst part? He still had no idea what I was about to do next. When I finally confronted Daniel, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no audience. Just me, standing in the doorway of his half-empty house, the one I used to pay for without question. He looked awful, pale, unshaven, bottles on the counter, mail scattered across the floor. The smell of whiskey hit me before he even said a word. "Claire," he muttered, voice low, hoarse. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should Mom's 50 grand. I said. He didn't deny it, didn't even flinch, just slumped onto the couch and said, "You think I meant for it to go this far?" I crossed my arms. "You drained her account, forged my signature, used Dad's credit and lied to all of us. So yeah, I think you meant for it." He dragged his hands down his face and said something I'll never forget. "She wanted to give it to me. They both did. You think they'd ever hand you that kind of trust? You were always the one they expected to manage things, not own them." I blinked, trying to make sense of it. "What does that even mean?" He looked up then, eyes bloodshot and empty. "You were their safety net, Claire. Always the responsible one. They never saw you as someone who needed help or deserved it. They saved all their faith for me. I just took it." There it was, the horrifying truth. He didn't steal because he was desperate. He did it because he could. Because in his mind, the family's loyalty was his currency. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "You know what it's like to be the disappointment? To know Mom only smiles when I say your name? To see her brag about her daughter's job, while I'm pretending to make 6 figures I don't have." He smirked, not out of humor, but shame. "So yeah, maybe I took the money. Maybe I lied. But I was just trying to even the score. I felt my chest tighten. You tried to ruin our parents' lives because you were jealous? He didn't answer. Just looked at me and said, "You made me feel small. Every time you showed up with that damn calm face and those answers. You made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about greed. It was about control. Daniel had been living in a silent rivalry I never signed up for. Every dollar he borrowed from me was an attempt to reclaim power. Every fake invoice, every lie, every manipulation, it wasn't about the money. It was about rewriting who mattered more. He'd rather burn everything down than admit I'd been the one holding it up. When I told him Renee had stolen from him too, he laughed. This low, bitter sound that didn't even sound human. "Of course she did," he said. "She saw what you never did. I'm not built for gratitude. I'm built to take." For a second, I actually pitied him. Not for what he'd lost, but for what he'd never had, the capacity to care about anything he couldn't control. Then he looked up at me and said quietly, "You think you've won, don't you?" I didn't answer, because this wasn't about winning. It was about ending. When I walked out, he didn't stop me, didn't yell, just said, almost to himself, "They'll forgive me before they forgive you. That's how it's always been." And maybe he was right, but forgiveness wasn't the goal. Truth was. And by the next morning, I was ready to show everyone just how deep his lies went. By sunrise the next morning, my plan was ready. I wasn't going to scream or expose him online. I was going to let the truth do the work. Quiet, clean, permanent. I printed every document, bank records, forged invoices, the emails between him and Renee, the transfer receipts from Mom's account. I placed them all in a binder labeled Evans Family Business. Then I sent one copy to Richard Bowen, the property developer, another to the bank's fraud department, and one last to my parents, by certified mail, so there'd be no pretending they didn't see it. 3 days later, everything detonated. Mom called first. Her voice was wrecked. "He took everything, Claire. The police were here this morning. They're freezing his accounts." I stayed silent. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "I'm so sorry for believing him, for letting him make you the problem." I didn't know how to respond. After all the years of gaslighting, that one sentence hit harder than any apology could. That night, I got another text, this time from Daniel. "You think they'll thank you for this? You think ruining me fixes anything?" I typed back, "No, Daniel. It just ends it." He didn't reply. Within a week, word spread. Daniel's clients dropped him. His accounts were under investigation. Renee was gone. She'd apparently emptied his last line of credit and disappeared out of state. Melissa filed for divorce. And my parents? They finally saw it. Every transfer, every lie, every stolen dollar I'd quietly covered for years. I expected anger or guilt. What I didn't expect was the letter that showed up at my apartment 2 weeks later. It was from my dad. Handwritten. No apologies, just truth. We didn't want to believe that the son we raised could do that. But the truth is, we didn't want to believe what we did to you either. We made you our safety net, not our daughter. That ends now. I read it 3 times, then tucked it into the back of my binder, behind the last page of Daniel's fake invoices, because that letter was the real closure. A month later, I heard Daniel had taken a warehouse job. No car, no wife, no savings. Just a rented room and his own mess to clean up. I didn't reach out, but every now and then, I'd get a padded envelope at my door, money orders for $200, $250, sometimes less. Each one with the same note, 1 week at a time. I never cashed them. I just kept them in the drawer. Proof that even someone like Daniel could learn the difference between taking and earning. The rest of the family stopped walking on eggshells around me. Mom started calling just to talk, not to ask for anything. Dad sent photos of the old hardware store he was fixing up again. For the first time, the silence between us didn't feel like a wall. It felt like peace. One Sunday evening, months later, I got another text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Daniel's kids sitting at a diner table, messy hair, smiling over pancakes. The message just said, "They're doing okay. We all are." Thanks for letting us learn the hard way. No name, no apology, but I knew who it was. I stared at that photo for a long time, then put my phone down and looked around my apartment. Quiet, warm mine. For years, I'd been the backbone of a family that only noticed me when they needed something. I thought cutting them off would make me the villain. But it didn't. It made me free. And freedom, I realized, doesn't come from being needed. It comes from finally being seen. So yeah, I wasn't invited to Christmas that year. But in a way, that's when I finally came home.